2 for Chirping, Zack Andrusiak. Finally on the pod. DROOS, you're like one of the fan favorites, so I'm glad we were able to get you to make this time. How kind of you.
Yeah, anytime.
Anytime. Dude, there's a lot going on right now. At the time of this recording, it's going to air 2 weeks later, but you just got named Player of the Week. So that's kind of nice, right? Good little week for the guys. And I feel like anytime you get, recognized by the league, it's nice to see.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice to get recognized, obviously, but at the end of the day, that's a team award too, right? You don't get to that point without your line mates and your teammates helping you. So, I would say it's rewarding for me, but also for the team.
You got to be having some fun though this year, right?
Yeah. We obviously we got a great team, and last year was fun too, and so it was exciting coming back and knowing we'd have a lot of the same guys to play with and that kind of thing. So yeah, we got a good, fun offensive team. We play my style, so it's lots of fun.
So when you say your style, I mean, what is that? Because I think a lot of times the shooting lanes open up for you to be able to unload.
Yeah, I would say I'm more of an offensive player. That's kind of been my role my whole life, and I like to play with the puck and have the puck, and usually guys when they have the puck a lot can create more. So I try to do that, and our team plays a pretty puck possession style, so that's nice for me.
Yeah, we're the other thing is too, we're recording this. Our most recent game was last Saturday of February against Indy. I know you've probably played with a lot of really good players, but I don't think any compare to Rick Vive, right? I mean, that was an unbelievable game by Justin.
Oh yeah, that was huge. I was so happy for him. I actually, when he scored his 4th goal, we got to the bench and I said to him, I'm like, hey, have you ever scored 4 goals before? Because like not many guys have done that, obviously. And he's like, no, I haven't. So I made sure the next shift to go get him the puck, because I was like, that's pretty special. Like not many guys get the chance to score hat tricks. Never mind 4 goals. So I made sure to get that for him.
I was going to say, because so it was him with a hat trick, Picard with a hat trick. And then the last one was you in March against Wheeling when we were in the Coney jerseys.
Yeah.
So I actually, and this is, I wish. So I told Viver I probably butchered the call, because not the call itself, but then a little bit afterward, because I am just scrolling through every page and on my laptop, because I'm thinking the same thing. I'm like, there's no way he's done this. And then if he has, when's the last time? And then you start thinking well, who's the last player that did it, whatever. And so we found out that he's not the first Cyclone that has scored 4 goals, but he is one of 2 Cyclones to ever have 6 points. And he tied a guy by the name of Matt Noga, who did it in December of 2002. So that's pretty crazy, right?
Yeah, it's
21
a long time
years
ago.
later.
Yeah.
It's, well, I mean, hey, a lot of things change, right? Things have changed in the game of hockey. Things have changed in the game of baseball. I feel like I have to talk to you about that. In my opinion, and I'll ask you this, I feel like you and I are the go-to baseball people. Maybe I'm giving myself too much credit. I don't know. But I certainly feel like you're the one guy more than anybody on the bus that I can sit near and all of a sudden just chat about baseball.
Yeah, definitely. I think we got a few more guys this year than we did last year that are big into baseball. I know that, because last year when I got here, I was pretty excited to be able to go to Reds games. And not a lot of guys seem too interested, but I think there's a few more this year, so that's nice. But yeah, we definitely have our good baseball chats.
Who are the guys that are more into it this year?
I know Sinclair, Mark Sinke, he's a big Yankees fan. Berzola's a big Yankees fan. I know I've talked to them. Barry likes going to baseball games.
Yeah.
We've talked about that. So yeah, I would imagine, I don't know if Warmy's a huge baseball guy, but I know he'll like going to the games too. So,
Braden, what do you got for us? For your big Reds.
Reds here, obviously. You talked about people not necessarily having interest to going to Reds games. That might be just because of the product the last few years. I saw Barry with a Tigers hat on in the locker room the other day, so I don't know if that was just
yeah, he's from Detroit. So.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
And then DROOS is a big Dodgers fan,
yeah.
So I actually thought about wearing a Philly shirt today, but I wasn't sure if the Cyclones would be mad at me or not for branding another team.
I'm not convinced you don't have one on under that jacket.
I don't, actually. I have an Express shirt. Everybody knows my love for Express clothing. Although I'm not going to lie, I'm a little warm right now in this quarter zip. So maybe I'll show you the Express. Nice little graphic tee. Dude, Philly's got Trey Turner. I'm very excited about that. I was actually watching on MLB Network the other day. Obviously the Dodgers are still going to be really good, but I am starting to wonder if they would win the division again.
Yeah, I mean, I would say right now, I actually was watching. I watched my first game of spring training yesterday. It was the Mets and who are they? Oh, St. Louis.
Yeah.
I think Cardinals yesterday, and I watched that one on ESPN, and they were talking about that. About the Dodgers, and it was funny because the first guy mentioned, he's like, oh yeah, obviously the East is pretty loaded now and stuff, because they were talking about the Mets and that, and then they're like, the Dodgers still got it out in the West, and then the one guy interrupted him and was like, I don't know, the Padres probably have. And I mean, yeah, the Padres on paper maybe now have, but I think like the Dodgers, like we obviously still have our guys.
Yeah.
Like, Betts and Freeman and then like we got the young guys too, like Will Smith and that are really good. And Lux, actually, it was too bad, but I think he's gonna have a big year this year. But he got carted off yesterday.
Oh, really?
I saw in their game.
That's not good, because
that's not good. He's gonna be like our probably starting shortstop right now. So yeah, he got carted off yesterday, so that's not a good look. But I mean, it's early. There's obviously lots of season to go. Hopefully we get Walker Buehler back healthy by July, August. They're hoping maybe, and that kind of thing. A few other guys like Blake Trinan and stuff too. We got quite a few pitchers out right now. So
I gotta ask, but again, a shout out to Braden Ramsey who produces this for us. The three of us can weigh in on this because. So this morning, I normally, like every day, and I'll ask what your morning routine is, but for me, normally I start with like hot tea. I'll like make a bagel or eggs, or like I think today I actually just like snacked on strawberries the whole morning for like 30 minutes, and I was like way too much. But I always just turn YouTube on and just watch something, and I just watched a 12-minute video about all the rule changes, because like I know them, but like I need to be reminded, because I'm sure you saw one spring training game that ended.
Yeah, the Red Sox one.
Yeah, right, where the player like did he step out of the batter box a second time, or he was in there too long?
Yes, and it counts as a strike, and he struck out.
Yeah, but it was bases loaded, full count.
Yeah.
And it was a tie game. And obviously, you'd go to extra innings in the regular season.
There was one too where the guy got walked too, because the pitcher, if he goes over the pitch count, like the timer, or if you throw to first base more than twice,
and you don't pick him,
counts as a balk.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
Like, so they walked a guy in that end of the game too.
So what I wanted to ask with you, and Braden can chime in on this too, is like the thing that I keep watching on MLB Network is they keep saying like, hey, that's how the game used to be. Like, we want to see the game sped up more. It used to be 15 seconds in between.
It's a
pitches.
28. I saw this morning 28-minute difference. So far, the spring training games last year to this year. Last year it was like 3:01 or 3:05 or something. This year it's like 2:38 or something.
But here's the thing. But like, yes, it's 2:28.
Yeah.
But like they keep saying, like the analysts are going like, this is how baseball used to be. Well, you're 24 years old. I just turned 28. Braden, you're what, 23?
Yep.
23. So like we're all relatively the same age. I didn't grow up seeing baseball that way. Like I grew up in the current era where, I remember a couple years ago where it was weird, like mound visits were starting to be monitored, but like, so that's the thing, like our generation, 90s kids, like we didn't grow up in the era, and you're kind of more a 2000s kid, but or both of you, but like we grew up in the modern era of baseball. I grew up where shifting was a thing, where pitchers did take half a minute between pitches. So like they're saying that the game is being restored to yesteryear, but like how do you guys feel about, I'm going to start with you, like how do you feel about some of the rule changes? Like there's got to be at least one that gets under you.
I like the no shift.
Okay.
I don't know. I understand, the tactics of it behind it, and teams having a good setup to stop guys. And obviously a lot of people say, just learn how to hit the other way. But I know a lot of guys, it takes away from a lot of offense. And people, at the end of the day, it's the same with our sport too. People like seeing offense, right? So I know, for example, like yesterday in that game I was watching with the Mets, there was at least 4 or 5 runs scored that wouldn't have been hits with the shift.
Yeah.
Involved. So they were talking to the manager about it, and he's like, hey, like, great, there's a perfect example of it. And then I think as far as the whole thing, the pickoff rule is a little weird to me. I think that's because, now it's going to make it easier to steal bases. And they made the plates bigger too. So that's also, because Goldschmidt stole base yesterday in that game, and they were saying that there's no chance that if the bases were regular size that he would have been out. So that's another thing.
I was going to say they're 18 inches instead of 15 now.
Yeah, so that's another thing. And then I don't know, the timer, I think, like they were talking about Goldschmidt, they had him mic'd up yesterday during the game, and he was saying, and I totally agree with him, that obviously there's going to be a massive adjustment period, but I think once everyone gets used to it, I think it's going to be like anything else. Guys are going to like it more.
Yeah.
You know, like right now, you might have the older veterans that have played 15 years that are like, this is a joke.
Yeah.
Like I would imagine guys like Justin Verlander aren't going to be too happy about it, or even Kershaw, like those kind of guys, they probably won't be too happy about it.
No,
because
Aaron Nola's, they said he's one of the slowest pitchers.
Yeah, like
to the plate.
they've played for so long, right? And they have their routine and they got exactly what they do, and now all of a sudden they got to change it.
Yeah.
This far into their career, in their Hall of Fame careers, so they're not going to be probably happy. Yeah, like Scherzer, like all those guys, they're not going to be very happy campers. But I mean, is it going to really make that huge of a difference at the end of the day? Guys are going to adjust like they do with everything else, and they're going to find new ways to get the job done, you know? But I saw a tweet yesterday too, and it was Eric Gagne, old Dodger pitcher, going head to head with Barry Bonds. And it was like a back and forth of them like taking times, and like it was like a 2-minute long video of the at bat. Wow. And they're like, we're going to miss this. You know?
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, yeah, I guess maybe some people might, but I think obviously they're trying to find ways to grow the game of baseball and kind of get away from like the old school where guys can't show emotion and that kind of thing. So I guess this goes along with it.
Yeah, kind of.
I think that's the biggest thing to me. Shoot, sorry about that. Just trying to think that the rule changes that they're making aren't necessarily for us. It's to bring more people.
Exactly.
Is the biggest thing to me. I love that at bat you were talking about. I heard, just talking about it, that apparently they agreed on that beforehand that he would get to throw one off-speed pitch, but then the rest of the time it was fastballs, just because they're that confident in one another. But you know, obviously, if you're expecting fastballs the whole time, then you drop in 3 curves, you're gonna make somebody look foolish, even Barry Bonds. So
yeah. It's just so hard. Like, I guess the one thing with me, and this is not meant to be a baseball podcast, but I knew if there was anybody I could bring it up with. So the only thing for me, and you compare it to our sport, which like, all right, I'll use an example of like 2-line passing used to be against the rules. I wonder for the sake of historical statistics. And that is, by the way, like with the Cyclones, that is an army within the fan base. And I obviously, I know you, the fans, are the ones listening. Like, it's just hard because we had a moment earlier in the year where Justin Vive was announced as the all-time goal scorer. Well, there's technically 3 categories he falls into. So he's the all-time leading goal scorer in franchise history, which includes the Louisville River Frogs and the Miami Matadors from the franchise that, you know, kind of like how the current Winnipeg Jets are using some statistics from the Atlanta Thrashers. Yeah. Then you've got the all-time Cyclones history, which is the ECHL Cyclones and the IHL, and that's where you see guys like Paul Lawless, Gilbert Dion. Their numbers are up in the rafters, but everyone's like, well, who are those guys? Like, and so there you're like, all right, are we comparing Justin Vive's ECHL stats to a guy's IHL numbers? But so I use that to explain what I mean coming up here, where like I'm a Phillies guy, so I'm going to reference Phillies players. You're a Dodgers guy. You're a Reds.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. But, like, the thing is, you had Pete Rose. Phillies had him, too. But, like Ryan Howard, a lot of people will say his career changed because of the shift. Like, and, you know, just seeing what stats are going to be, like, change, like, guys are going to be more offensive now. Yeah. So you're going to see guys start climbing the ladder in hits and season batting average and stolen bases, and it's like, that was, like, that's almost not fair, at least in some ways I see, to compare somebody's 2023 season to somebody who maybe had a great year in 2016, but by comparison, they had to play under a different rule book. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's always going to be the debate, though, because it's like you bring it back to hockey again, it's going to be the same thing, right? Like, it goes with Ovechkin's goal chasing Gretzky, right? And everyone says, oh, well, when Gretzky played, look at the goalies, look at the... Yeah. But there's so many things you could say for that, right? Because not only were the goalies worse in Gretzky's day and their gear was smaller and all that kind of stuff, but you could say, oh, yeah, well, Gretzky used a wooden stick with a straight blade. Like he didn't have the equipment that Ovechkin gets to use, right? So I think there's always an argument, right? And it's the same thing with baseball too, like the bats that guys are using now compared to what they used to use
Yeah.
and all that kind of stuff. Like they were actually during the game yesterday too, they were talking about that, about how far baseball has come with like custom bats and
Yeah.
like bringing guys in and having every single thing custom to what they want. And you never used to have that.
My girlfriend and I went to Louisville Slugger Museum. I highly recommend you go. I think you'd have a field day there. But they have a batting cage where you can use old bats that are like, I mean, they weren't game used, but they're the model.
Yeah.
And I used a Roberto Clemente and a Ty Cobb bat. And like, I was whiffing on everything. Like, it's just, I mean, first off, it's like 5 times the weight, feels like, than your standard, like, Louisville Slugger or like a Rawlings or, you know, and it's just, but it is so different. To your point, though, I guess you're right about Gretzky, right? Like he wasn't using a CCM Super Tax, you know, 75 Flex or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, so I guess it's just kind of you give and take with that.
Yeah,
right?
there's always going to be that argument, right? Like you can't, just everything, even the training that they used to not do compared to what we do nowadays and stuff. Like, so there's always going to be a gray area.
Yeah,
And it's like you're never going to be able to fully compare.
that's fair.
Yeah, when you go across eras, it's borderline impossible.
Yeah.
You in basketball all the time too. You know, whether it's LeBron, whether it's MJ, throw it back even further. Wilt, Kareem, Bill Russell, everybody.
Yeah, it's every
those
sport,
arguments.
right?
Yeah.
It's every sport. There's always going to be some excuse. I think personally, I like to just, you know, be happy that you get to witness the greatness.
That's true.
Of thing. Like even guys always like I'm a big Tom Brady guy, and like people always find a way to nag on him and go at him, you know, and it's his defense and all that. But I think you just got to bask in the greatness and just accept and be like proud that you got to see it, you know, and be a part of it. Or like a Tiger Woods, like guys like that, like we got to see their careers. That's pretty cool.
Let me bring up another guy since you're talking about these big names in sports, and I think it's somewhat relevant. You ever watch any boxing?
Yeah, a little bit. I know, like Floyd Mayweather.
Yeah, you know where I'm going with it.
Yeah, like Floyd Mayweather obviously is incredible.
But like,
And what he's been able to do.
There's an
in his
argument
career.
there, though.
Yeah, like same thing. Yeah, with that.
You know.
Right? It's every single sport you're gonna find something that
Yeah.
you're gonna be like, oh well, this guy had. Like I know for boxing and UFC, they say how those guys used to fight way more back in the day, right?
Yeah.
Like they were fighting every couple weeks,
Yeah.
rather than these guys. The big guys now only fight like once a year,
yeah,
right? So that's a big difference.
that
too.
is true. That is true. Well, we saw. I was going to say because again, also recent. Jake Paul lost to Fury, so the 6-0 record is over. But I wonder if they were saying like, is it just like, is this his ceiling? Like you know how it is. I mean, guy takes one loss, but it does interest you because I mean he had a couple of cheap celebrity wins, but he had a couple that was decent.
Yeah, I might take some hate for this, but I was actually cheering for Jake Paul.
Oh, you were?
I don't know.
Okay.
I at the start of all this, I hated him. I was like, this guy is a joke. Like he's embarrassing. But honestly, like I've gained so much respect for him. How he does everything. How he, you know, markets himself. He's a genius.
Yeah.
He is incredible at doing
Him and his
that.
brother.
And yeah, him and his brother. Like everything they do, like they're incredible at it. And honestly, the guy can box too. Like he's improved a ton.
yeah.
I think he's tough. He can take a punch, but I didn't watch. I only watched a little bit of the fight, like and at the end. But my dad watched the whole thing, and he told me like it was pretty obvious to see that Jake was not in the same category as Fury. Like he got exposed pretty bad, which I mean happens when you're a guy that had like Jake. How long has he been? Has this been 2-3 years maybe?
Yeah.
Like maybe, that's tough, like to just pick that up, and whether you're boxing guys that have done it their whole lives. So I think honestly, I mean, you never know, like anybody can get to the top of their game at anything.
Yeah.
But I think it's a long way for him before he's able to fight guys that are really legit, you know, and are up.
Yeah. His brother, I was going to say, is like in WWE now too.
Yeah,
Logan Paul.
I haven't watched any of it at all, but I've seen on Twitter that I guess people love him.
Apparently,
on there.
yes.
Yeah,
I
like
did
they
see this.
love him. Like I've seen a few posts about it that like he has upped the rating so much, and like some of his shows that he's been involved with, they've said are like the best in years.
Yeah, well,
The
apparently
stunts and stuff that he's pulling is incredible, I guess.
that's what people were saying is that like it's not just the name value, because you can do that. You can bring a guy in for name value, and especially in professional wrestling where it's very entertainment based, you know, to say the least. Like you can bring a guy in, he can do whatever because his face is
Yeah.
there. But you're right. I was reading some stuff, and I think I watched a couple of highlights online. I
Yeah,
was like,
I've seen a few
it's kind of
videos. It's pretty
entertaining.
incredible.
Like,
Yeah, him flying through the air and stuff is pretty good.
Yeah. Are
Yeah.
you so they have a podcast. Do you listen to you a podcast guy at all?
Not really.
I was gonna say.
Yeah, I don't know. I've like on a few long drives, like when we drove down here, it was a pretty long drive. So my girlfriend downloaded a few and we listened to them, but like
Okay.
not, I don't know if I'm not like a huge, like, I like music too, but I'm not a like guy that's always listening to music. You know, you see some people walk around and they always got a headphone in or something. I'm not really like that either. Like sometimes I drive in the car and I just like silence.
Yeah, me too. I do
Like,
that
it's-
once in a while.
But yeah, I would say the podcast I would listen to the most, this is every hockey player's answer, I would imagine, is Spit and Chicklets, just because it's funny, you know?
Yeah.
Like they're hilarious and so many stories are relatable
Yeah.
too. And then also, like I have some friends that like will be on there sometimes too. So it's like funny to see their stuff. And then some of the top guys in the NHL, you know, they can't really show their personality and stuff all the time.
Yeah.
So to have them go on there and then actually do it is pretty funny too.
You strike me, and I mean this in like not a bad way, maybe even complimentary. You're just, I think you're a simplistic guy. Like I don't think you need a lot to be happy. Is that fair?
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's totally what I am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like, because I don't, so the podcasting, you can drive with no music, which I like doing that sometimes too. I don't think you're a big social media guy either.
No, I'm not.
Right? Are you under the belief, like, is it
Yeah.
toxic to you?
Yeah, not necessarily that because I use it. I have Instagram, I have Twitter. I don't necessarily like I don't post, but I like using it for the fact like keeping up with friends and family that maybe you know you don't talk to all the time and that kind of thing. You can see what they're still up to. I like that. And honestly, my favorite thing about it is highlights. It's the easiest
so
to get, to get all your highlights and know exactly what's going on in the sports world. Like, cause you go on there and it's all on there. So you can watch it after our games or whatever. I go on Twitter or Instagram and watch all the highlights from all the NHL games that night or that kind of thing.
I wonder if, like, and I don't know if you would have heard it whether you were in Seattle in junior or Idaho or even Cincy, like, do guys ever take notice to, like, that's the fact that you don't have that side? Because dude, you have to be one of few people, especially at your age. You're 24 years old. You have to be one of few guys that is just like I don't think you're like when you say you have like a private life, like you're not somebody who's like, oh, I just did something big. Let me take a selfie and post it so everybody can find out.
Yeah, honestly, I'd never been like really a guy to take like pictures either or anything when I was doing things. It was more so I just like be in the moment. And then my girlfriend has actually gotten me, she's a big picture person and likes taking photos. So she like got me into like, you gotta take photos so that you have that, you know. So then I got into it a little bit more now, taking photos and stuff, but I'm not, like you said, I'm not a huge, like, I don't feel the need to like post it out there for everybody.
Yeah.
It's more so like if I want someone to see, I'm going to send it to them directly.
Yeah, I get
So
that.
I'll be like, oh, I want my parents to see this. I'll send it to them.
Yeah.
Or I want my grandparents to see this. I'll send it to them rather than like just posting it on social media.
So I post. I'd like to think I don't post a lot, but I post enough because it was actually told to us, like, if you're going to be a broadcaster, like, you have to have that market, that brand.
Yeah,
value,
and that
whatever.
makes sense too. Like obviously there's some athletes too that it helps them, right?
Yeah.
Like they need to post. Like,
Yeah.
even like I think of a guy like for golf, for example, like Max Homa. No one would probably know who Max Homa is if it wasn't for like his Instagram and Twitter game. Like he's constantly interacting with fans, which is a great thing too, right?
Yeah. Look at like Pat Shea in our league, right?
Yeah, I don't know who that is.
Maine Mariners. I hope I have the name right. Braden will fact check. He's like the Jamie. If you ever watched Joe Rogan, he's young Jamie. But there's I think Pat Shea plays for the Maine Mariners, and I'm like 90+% positive that's him. And he's got a YouTube channel, and like he does like weird like funny videos, or he'll like talk about like when he got called up, because I think he played like a couple games in Charlotte last year and then like sent down, and he's but again, he's an ECHL player, and he gets like, I mean, it's nothing unbelievable, but it's like 30,000 views a video on YouTube. That's a hell of a lot
not
more
bad.
than our YouTube channel's getting, or the ECHLs. And like, so there's that guy, and then like but here's the other part of it, and this is the part that gets kind of weird. I'm I don't mind posting. I'm not a big selfie guy, but I'll take a picture of where I'm at.
Yeah.
So like if I'm sitting at a ball game or I'm sitting in the Cyclones booth, I'll take a picture. So it's like my point
Your
of view.
view, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I'm like too. I don't know.
Well, the things I don't like though, and I see people do this because you talk about like living in the moment, right? Like why
Yeah.
do I need this? Is when like if you see that big at bat coming, and I not trying to bring it back to
Everyone
baseball.
pulls up their phone.
Yeah, but they've got it on video. That's the part that
and they're
annoys me.
watching through their phone rather than
Yes.
actually watching. And actually, it's funny you say that because the LeBron James, like with a shot that he broke their point record,
Yeah.
they posted a photo of him taking the shot from behind, and you see everybody in the crowd phone out.
Yeah.
Except for I think there's like one guy that didn't. Other than that, every single guy has their phone out and is taking the video. And then they showed back to like when Wilt Chamberlain did it.
Yeah.
And there's obviously back then there's no phones, right? So nobody had a phone out. But it's just like it's just how different everything is.
I think that takes you yourself somewhat out of the moment because you're
Yeah.
more concerned about like not only are you watching.
Am I
through your
getting
phone,
this good
did I get the
angle?
shot?
Yeah,
right.
like, yeah.
I could be the next person. This might get 1 million views on Twitter, right? And like I cannot stand that, dude.
I think that's just our culture now. Honestly, like you see anything going on, and somebody is always going to pull out their phone and take a video.
Yeah.
Which it's good for some things, but it's also bad for a lot of things
Right.
too, right?
Yeah, I really do think you miss out. I think it does take something away from the moment, and I because like to me too, I know I was there, so for my eyes to have actually seen it, I'll just pull it up on like MLB.com or
Yeah,
something.
there's going to be 1,000 videos of it out there, so you just.
You know what I mean? Like but I
Yeah.
knew I was there, so I don't care.
And I think it'd be pretty cool to be in a photo like that where you're the only guy without your phone up.
Oh, there you go.
That'd be
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Yeah, you might do that sometime. I'm trying to think. There's a lot of things that I want to talk about. But man, I'm so wrapped up in sports now. My head is like everywhere there. But yeah. Do you ever kind of getting back to that? Like, you ever catch yourself getting flack from anybody? Like for just like, dude, where are you on social media? Like, or
No, not anymore. It was like that was more like a high school thing. Like I remember I never got Instagram until probably like 3 years before it was out. And my buddies were like, dude, you gotta get it. Like you gotta, everybody has it. But like I would say I got quite a few friends that like they have it, but they don't post.
Oh, that's cool then.
So it's like, I feel like, yeah, that was probably more so a high school thing where
Gotcha.
guys would be like, why don't you post?
Yeah. It's
Don't need to.
no, I agree with you. I don't have an Instagram. I'm only using the Twitter and Facebook. But man, I know we've talked about what a year it's been, right? What a peculiar beginning of a year it was for you. I'm going to put you on the spot here. I don't know if you want to do it, but you were kind enough to do it at the Cincinnati Children's Hospital. You've got a great set of teeth right now, but you do have a piece in.
Yeah.
Are you able to show it?
Yeah, I got like it'd be like what do they call this? Invisalign?
Yeah,
It's
you
like
do
an
have a little
Invisalign, and then they slipped a couple fake teeth in there.
Yeah.
I try and make it look so I had some teeth
Yeah.
for the time being.
So you and I did an interview about it earlier this year, and I told people, and full transparency, and I think you won't be mad for me saying this, like whenever I go to interview you, you're just generally like shorter. Like you're not a big like wants to talk at length and make 20-minute interviews. So I was a little nervous because a typical interview for you and I on radio is probably like 6 minutes. Maybe we get 7. The day that I asked you when you were coming back if we could talk about what happened, it was like 14 minutes. So you're not afraid to talk about that. And the reality is we didn't have it on camera. So not everybody listened to that interview. Because I had a couple of people that were shocked when you brought it up at the hospital visit. So I kind of want to recant that here on the podcast where we have that video element because it's like a nightmarish story. And I know your mom, I believe, Tracy,
Yeah.
right? So, I know she was messaging me. I think she was messaging some of the guys on the team that are close with you. Like, this was obviously a scary moment for your family. I can't imagine you love reliving it per se, but are you able to kind of just take me back to October 22nd?
I don't know. It's not a big deal now. Like it happens. It's part of the game. You know, I would say it's kind of, you know, like the last thing you want to happen, but I mean, it does happen. And I didn't even know what happened until after. So,
Well, start with
but
what,
yeah,
what do you remember?
I don't remember much, honestly, especially now since it's been so far, like long ago. I like to try and think. I don't remember anything from that day. Barely remember any of the game. Like I remember bits and pieces of the hospital that night, and it's kind of, it's kind of an all in a blur. But I remember just waking up in the ambulance and being like, "What happened?" Like there's blood all over me, and they got me in one of those neck things, and I was so uncomfortable. I'm like, "What is this thing?" I tried taking it off, and the guy's like, "Whoa, whoa," and I'm like, I thought I was in a car accident. In my head, I didn't think. In my head, I was like, we were driving down to Cincinnati. We're not here for this season yet. And I was like, did we get in a car accident? I'm like, what happened? And then I looked down and I had my gear, like my bottom half of my gear on still. And I'm like, hey, wait, no, this happened in a game. And then I'm like, wait, like maybe this was first game of the year we were playing. And then I started asking the guy questions. I'm like, did this happen in a game? Like, what happened to me? Did I get hit in the face with a puck? And he's like, yeah, like we weren't inside, but that's what they told us what happened. Like, and I'm like, okay. And then I hear him on his intercom and he's like, yeah, we got him coming in. Like, he keeps repeating himself. I'm like, oh my gosh, how many times am I asking this guy the same thing? And then I got to the hospital and they like wheeled me into the room and like, I was just like in lots of pain. And I remember I got there and as soon as the nurse left, I ripped off the neck thing. I'm like, I'm not wearing this.
Yeah.
And I looked at it and it was just covered in blood. It was completely all red. And I was like, oh, that's not good. And then I remember sitting in the room and I had like the heart thing with my heartbeat going. And every like 15, 20 seconds, this is like the one thing I remember clearly, it would start like beeping for some reason. Like it would be like so loud. And I was getting so mad because my head was killing me. And they gave me morphine and like that did nothing.
Wow.
It didn't take away any pain, nothing. And so I'm just like, this thing has got to go. Like, and I'm like looking for a way to like try and unplug it or something. And then so I kept calling the nurse and then finally came in and he turned it off every time. And then finally it kept happening. So then he came in and I'm just like, dude, unplug this thing. Like, I don't need it. Like, I'm not going to, and I'm like, I'm not going to die on you guys. Like, it's fine. And he's like, all right, I'll do it. I'm not supposed to, but I'll do it. And then finally unplugged it. And then I remember I told him to turn on the TV for me too. Cause I'm like, I'm so bored. Like maybe I'll try watching some TV. Yeah. And I tried watching TV and like literally my head hurt so bad when I started. I'm like, okay, yeah, no, I can't do this. So I just like shut my eyes.
Wow.
And, and then they like wheeled me out and I went and got like my CT scan and stuff. And then I was like extremely cold because I think probably because I lost so much blood. And I was just like really cold. So I was like, and I didn't have a shirt on because I had to cut off my Under Armour. Right. And then I was still in my gear. So I was like dried sweat kind of. So, you know, you get cold. Yeah. And so I got like a couple blankets. They brought me a couple warm blankets and I was just like chilling. And then the doctor came in and they were really busy that night, I guess, too. I heard them like talking and the nurse kind of told me a bit that there was like a couple car accidents that came in. So they were like super busy. And so he came in and like did some stitching in my mouth, tried to shove my teeth back in, which did not work whatsoever. They were just an absolute mess. He literally used like wiring to like wire them into my mouth to try and keep them there, to try and save them. And he would come in like every 5 minutes and I would still be bleeding and he'd be like, oh, geez, and put in more stitches. And then finally, like, I think it was like 4:30, 5 in the morning. They were like, oh yeah, you can go now. And Matt Cairns, he stayed the night. Luckily, his parents drove his vehicle down to Fort Wayne for him to drive back. So he stayed the night with Timmy and they drove me home.
Did they just stay at the hospital?
No, they went to a hotel.
Okay.
And then I called them when I was like done. And then I got home and I'm like, I had this like big gauze all over my face. And like gauze in my mouth because my mouth didn't stop bleeding till like the next day, like midway through it was like bleeding for like a day and a half. Yeah. And I walked in the door and my dog Dodger like was so scared of me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was scared. He would not come up to me. He was like tail between his legs, like hiding from me and stuff. And I was like, oh no. And actually, when I first came in, he like ran to me like he usually did. And then my girlfriend's like, Dodger, like Dad's not okay. Like you got to be careful with him. And then right after that, it was like he knew something was wrong, so he just like avoided me for like a week.
Wow.
After that,
Jeez.
And like so, I went to the dentist the next day, and my teeth were still like these two were wired in, and then the other one. I don't know what happened to it. It must have got destroyed on the ice or something with impact, and then half of my tooth fell out too. And then so the two that actually pulled out part of my jawbone, so I'm still waiting to I got to get a bone graft in my jaw. They were like just shoved in there, and they were so annoying. I couldn't close my mouth fully because the way they were put in.
Yeah.
So I said to the dentist, I'm like, can I get these out now? Like, can you just pull them out? And they're like, wow, we want you to see like the periodontist first to see if like he can save them or what he wants to do, because we don't know what's like up there kind of thing. I'm like, all right. So I had to keep them in there for like a day, and I couldn't like close my mouth properly because they were like in the way. So then I was just like literally gonna pull them out at home. Like if my girlfriend wasn't here, I probably would have pulled them out myself.
You just needed somebody to
yeah,
tell you,
because
like,
I was
stop.
just like annoyed. Yeah, I was just so annoyed. And I'm like, I want these out.
Yeah.
And so I went to the periodontist the next day, and he's like, yeah, we can take them out for you. So he took them out, and then more stitching. So at the end of it, I think I had like at least 30 stitches in my face and mouth.
Wow.
And then it was so funny because so I was like, the whole thing, my jaw was broken and my cheekbone, but luckily I didn't have to get it wired or nothing. And I was like, they're like, all right, so like just like cold foods, like nothing, like soup cold, and like smoothies and that kind of thing, ice cream, like nothing. I'm like, yeah. And I get home, I'm like, I'm not doing that. Like maybe for one day, like, and then so like literally the second day I was eating normal food and like just being super careful and like keeping it on my right side of my mouth. And then like a week and a half later or 2 weeks later, the periodontist texts me and he goes, yeah, I think you could probably start eating solid foods now. And I'm like, oh yeah, for sure, man. Like, thanks. Yeah, it was so funny. I was like, I never took any painkillers either or nothing. They like, They gave me like and I'm like, I'm not taking this stuff. I don't need it. So I just like had to fight the pain for a couple weeks. But honestly, the mouth part wasn't even the bad thing, because you know that happens, right? You lose teeth, whatever, it heals. Bones heal, same thing. The part that I was most worried about was my head, because that was my first time like having a real serious concussion, and I literally woke up for at least 2 weeks straight with a headache, and had a headache all day. And like couldn't do anything. I couldn't go in the car. If I tried going in the car, I would get sick. Like my head would be spinning. I'd get nauseous. And then I was just like sitting on the couch, like just kind of, I couldn't watch TV because it would give me a headache. So I would just kind of listen to it and stare into space.
So when you say like, so the concussion was the worst part, I mean, gosh, I feel like there's a ton of questions I want to ask about everything you just said, but like starting with that, I mean, are you like, you're waking up with headaches? Are these like those pulsating, painful ones? Are they middle of the night?
Yeah.
Are you able to get a full night's sleep?
My sleeps were pretty all over the place too, because of course I couldn't sleep on my side. So I had to sleep with like my head propped up and like basically sitting up for like a couple weeks. So that was like brutal. I'd wake up every couple hours or so and like kind of just whatever. But
you go outside for walks or anything like that?
Yeah, I would try. After the first week, I started like going for slow walks. Like I'd take Dodger for like a short walk, but I couldn't do too much because it'd get sore. And then I remember my thing was, if I go 3 days without a headache, then I'm going to like try and do something. And I remember I went a couple days without one, and then we had our home opener. And after that, it was just, I don't know if it was the lights, the noise, something, and that was bad. That like set me back again. And then finally I went 3-4 days without one, and came into the rink and rode the bike, and then did nothing. And then the next day did a workout and felt good, and then decided to go on the ice and felt good, and then just got better. My biggest thing was I wanted to take time and make sure I was 100% before rushing back with the head, because you don't want to mess around with that, right? Like you see a lot of guys that, you know, come back too early from that, and then it's one hit again and they're out. Yeah. And I have some real close friends that's happened to them, and they're in pretty rough shape now, and I didn't want that. So
yeah. What do you remember the first time that you got to see your face after everything happened?
Yeah, I like in the hospital when Timmy and Karen came to me and they brought my phone for me. And I opened up, I grabbed my phone and I took a picture. I looked at myself. I'm like, holy cow. like my face was all blood. And I was like, wow, that's like, but it was stitched up at that point. So I'm like, man, this guy did a good job.
Yeah.
The stitching, he did a really good job. Like,
that's good.
And then I saw the picture the next day. Timmy sent me of me right after it happened. And that didn't even look like me.
Yeah,
like I know Timmy said he showed it to Berkey and Berkey said to him, who's that?
Yeah.
Like they didn't even know.
That's I was going to say, I know I saw both of them. And I'm glad that I don't remember what that first one was. Because I think I saw it the next day or over the weekend or something. Timmy sent it. I was just like, oh my God. Like,
yeah, it was literally a hole in my face.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't even a cut. It was a legit hole in my face.
That's why whenever you did come back to the rink, I was happy to see you. Right. Like you really, I mean, that I guess would be the surgeon, like did an excellent job
did
with
a
you,
phenomenal job.
You know?
Yeah.
So now fast forwarding as we're continuing to talk some hockey, and we'll wrap up here probably in the next couple minutes or so. But you came back, you played with the bubble. And then recently, I want to say, probably in the last month, you switched back to the visors. So when were you given clearance? Was there any hesitation on you for doing that?
No, I was honestly, I didn't think that I would be able. I'm like I said, I'm still waiting for the bone graft, and I thought that I would have got in before. So I was like expecting to have to wear the bubble like all season. Because I'm like, because as soon as I get the bone graft, I have to wait 3 to 4 months again for that to heal.
Yeah.
So whenever I get that done, I'm going to have to put the bubble back on. So I was like just expecting to not have to take it off at all. And then I obviously haven't gotten in yet. So then one day Timmy's like, yeah, like we were talking about the doctors, like we think you could probably put it on a visor. I'm like, oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Like,
So wait a minute. So clear this up for me then. So the bone graft, upon doing that, because does that require another surgery?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically I lost, I could show you the picture after of what my teeth look like with the bone stuck to them.
We might take that photo. You might actually want to send it to us because we could probably throw that up on the pod.
I don't know if people want to see that, but it's pretty bad. Like I lost my, like, I don't know what they call it, but right in here where your teeth go into is missing on me. It's just gone. So they have to like go in there and because I'm getting implants eventually. So for them to be able to build a bridge in there, I need that jawbone part of my jaw. So they got to build I don't know if they're taking bone from somewhere else or if they're using artificial, and they got to build it in there and then let that heal.
Okay.
And then once that heals 3 to 4 months, then they can go in there again and drill in the bridge. And then I got to wait another 3 months for that to heal. And then they can put in the fake implant teeth.
Okay. So then let's just say, because you don't currently have a date for this bone graft.
No.
So odds are, though, you will be back. Like, even if, let's say you did it in the off season, odds would be pretty strong, though, that you'd start next season with a bubble.
If it was in that 3 to 4 month window.
Yeah.
Yeah. If not, if I can, ideal would be to get it like right at the end of the season.
Right.
And then I could just go the off season to have it heal and then be fine.
True. Yeah.
So that would be ideal.
And then you could come back with just the visor.
Yeah.
Okay.
That would be ideal.
Yeah. Well, we'll see if that happens. So the last thing I want to ask you about this whole the teeth debacle, the whole situation, and I haven't even talked to you about this. So some guys will talk to me about the broadcast if I mess up a goal call or if I, whatever. Occasionally you get the, hey, good job, Mosser, which I'll take that. I call a ton of your goals, and I don't know if I oddly took on the role of concerned parent or not. I know we didn't talk about this. I don't know if you even heard about it. I want to say it was the game we lost 6-0 in Indy. I was so worried when you and Chris Cameron fought. And I think I was saying something to the effect on air of Zack has got to be careful here. The bubble is ripped off. Because I don't know at this point. I'm like, dude, if you take a punch in the face there, is that, so, and you ended up having one hell of a fight. It was probably the best fight we've seen this season out of anybody. So it was really cool to see. But did you hear about this? Did you hear about it from mom, dad, girlfriend? What was your level of concern?
I honestly, I took it off myself. I was just mad and I was done. And I'm like, yeah, I don't care what happens. So I just ripped it off myself. But yeah, some of the guys even too, when I got in the room, they're like, what are you doing, man? You okay? Like, were you not afraid to get, I'm like, whatever. If it happens, it happens. Like, it's not you don't think about it in that moment. Right. And like, honestly, what's the worst can happen? You know, I don't think it can get much worse than what already happened. So definitely not going to get worse from a punch. So, but yeah, I know my mom said the same thing to me. My dad, he's the old school hockey, so he's got the same mindset of me as this whatever, tough it out. And then there's been a few fans that have said to me, "What are you doing? You're so concerned." And my grandparents and stuff too are pretty concerned, and my girlfriend. But yeah, like I said, it's part of the game. And
you were happy you got the better end of the fight.
Yeah, it's whatever. Like,
yeah. I was just curious, how much? Okay, put you on the spot. How much do you ever listen back to your own goal calls or highlights? How much do you watch?
I would say I hear it sometimes, but I mostly watch them on my Instat, so I don't think that usually has the sound on. The only time I hear them is if I watch them on Twitter.
Fair enough.
There's been a few times this year where we just like don't get our Instat, so I don't know if they're behind or something. So I just go on Twitter and watch so that I can see what happened.
Trying to do you justice, man.
Last game I watched them quite a bit because I watched that goal. My first goal last game was pretty wicked.
It was so nice.
I watched that passing play over a few times.
Tic-tac-toe.
Yeah.
It was so good.
That's one of the nicest goals I think I've ever been a part of or seen, even for passing play.
Yeah.
Like that was pretty phenomenal. We counted it. We made 5 passes from our blue line up the ice between the 3 of us. That was pretty phenomenal.
When you're trying to call the play, like, it kind of surprises you, because I don't mean this in a bad way, but like, you adjust to the league you're in. So like, I had been here, had been the SPHL, the NAHL, and you can't call it like it's the NHL because it's just not the same. And then like that one, I felt like I was falling behind because everything was so crisp. Like it was really, really nice. You're not kidding. By the time it got to you for the shot on Driscoll, like, what's he gonna do? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, of course it's gonna go in. As long as you put it on target, it's gonna go in because he's just like losing his mind.
Yeah, I don't. It's
like
kind
a
of funny.
flying
That must have been a tough one to defend for sure. And for him in the net, he was probably like, "Come on."
You know, that was his birthday.
Yeah, I heard somebody say that actually in the second intermission. I think right after he got pulled. I think I heard someone be like, "Oh, it's a tough birthday."
Yeah, not a good one there. I was gonna say you wouldn't have any memorable birthday goals because what are you, July?
July, yeah.
Any favorite birthdays? Like what's the best birthday you've had? We'll try to end it closer to this. I'm sorry I'm taking up some of your time, but we're having fun here.
I don't really even remember that many birthdays. I always talk about this with people, and I would say like the most memorable one for me was when I was a kid and the Wii had come out like that year.
A great console.
And I never had gaming consoles when I was a kid because my parents were like you go outside and play, like you play in the yard, in the house, whatever. Like they always wanted me being active, right? So and obviously I credit them to, me getting good at hockey and improving at hockey was a big part of that because that's all I did as a kid was play sports and have fun with my buddies and we're always playing a different sport. But I remember when the Wii came out and it was the NHL Slapshot commercial with Wayne Gretzky. Yeah, where he's like in the mansion and he's hammering things off and I'm like, that is sweet. I need that.
Yeah.
So I like went to my parents and I'm like, I need the Wii. Like, come on, please. And they're like, hey, if you want the Wii, you buy it yourself.
Okay.
Like, you buy it yourself. And your birthday's coming up, so you know what you need to do. So I invited every single guy on my team and like all of like a few buddies from school, and I told all of them to tell their parents, and my parents obviously were in on it too. They probably told their parents too that I was saving for a Wii.
Yeah.
So every single person, my birthday present was money. They all gave me cash. Every single person, like $20. So then I saved enough money for my Wii and I went and bought it. And yeah, that was like definitely like the most rewarding and memorable one that I would say for positivity. The only other birthday I kind of remember too is like I think I was like 5 or 6, and I got stung behind my ear by a bee.
Oh.
And that wasn't very fun. And then we were playing football in the backyard, and one of my buddies thought he broke his arm and was crying, and it was a mess.
God.
Yeah.
It's not a good birthday. But the first one was.
Yeah.
NHL Slapshot. Bar Down just did a video on that. If they think NHL Slapshot still holds up as one great hockey game. Like,
It was
different.
pretty, like, if you look back, like, the graphics were awful and like
course,
the
yeah.
actual gameplay was a mess and stuff,
Yeah.
but it was just so much fun. Like, yeah, I remember like you even had the stick too
Yeah,
that you put
100%.
the controllers in and
Yeah.
like played with. So yeah, that was pretty cool.
That was awesome. Braden, did you have something? I thought I heard the mic go on.
Yeah, I get just a couple hockey-related things just because I'm curious about it. You were good in Idaho, good in Orlando, but since you've got here, you've become great, I would say. I guess what kind of led to that? Is it that puck possession style you talked about, just some schematic things, and then also the right dot, what makes you so lethal from there?
I would say, obviously, like I said, yeah, the structure and style of our team, how we play, and the guys I get to play with here, is we got some real good skilled players and smart players to play with, and then opportunity is obviously a big thing. Like anywhere you go, it's all about the opportunity and right fit, right? And the team here, Painter's given me a good chance to do what I do, and he gives me a pretty good leash to play my way and play my style, and puts me with the players that will allow me to do that. So credit to him and credit to my teammates and line mates, to, put me over the top and have a real good time here. And as far as the right dot, I mean, so this is kind of funny. My dad, my whole life, has always told me that my moneymaker was my shot. He's like, that's going to be your moneymaker. And as a kid, and I still do this, I would shoot in the summer at least. When I was a kid, I would shoot more because I was younger, so I wouldn't get as sore.
Yeah.
So I would shoot like $500 a day at least. Wow. And now I have to knock it down to like 200 or so because my shoulders and wrists get sore and stuff. But I always, my whole life, that's what I've always done. So I think I credit my dad. Used to, in our garage, he would tie milk jugs from the top corner on my net, and he would pass me pucks, and I would shoot. And so I would say that's the biggest thing, just that practice and repetition from that spot. And that's the best thing to make you good at something.
Heck yeah. I think every time we see you on the right dot, or on the ice, we see you just kind of wiggling your way over there through the defense. It's just like we're just waiting for that pass together. And every time that stick comes down, it feels like 95% of the time it ends up in the back of the net. So just curious to see how it's just so efficient, just lethal from there.
Let me, last thing before we end the podcast, we have been going here for a while, but we've been talking about, I mentioned Tracy, your mother, your dad's name?
Vince.
Okay, Vince. So tell me a little bit about him and the podcast with that. Your parents obviously have meant a lot to you, and they've helped you get to where you are.
Yeah. So my parents, my dad, he's got a hockey background. He played growing up and stuff, and then he coached junior for 12 plus years. And he's actually, the only reason he stopped coaching was because I became the age that I started playing, and he wanted to be around for all of my stuff and to follow me around. And so, my parents, they've been so great the whole time. And like, I grew up loving hockey because when I was a kid, I was so lucky, honestly. Like, I never had to go to preschool or none of that, because I just went to the rink every day with my dad. Yeah. And he would, if he was busy, with meetings or anything like that, the players would look after me. So I just screw around in the room and like hang out with the guys and that kind of thing. So that was a big part. I fell in love with hockey right away. And my whole life, they've always given me every opportunity to succeed and get me to where I am today. So, and it's funny because my mom is not a big sports person.
Okay.
Which is the complete opposite of my dad and I. We are like full on sports, but she could honestly care less.
Okay.
But for me, that's how like they have so much support for me, because for me, she's like the most supportive mom as she can be, and she's constantly, even when I play terrible, she texts me, "Good game." I'm like, no. Yeah. No. You can't be so hard on yourself always, so. Yeah. Whereas my dad's a little bit more critical. He's now that I'm older, he's like taking a step back and just whatever. But when I was a kid, I was a bit of a hothead when I was a kid. I would lose my mind a little bit, so we would go at it a little bit. Yeah. But it was always just no, they were usually loud. They were usually going back and forth, because I was dumb when I was young. I would take stupid penalties, or I would take myself out of games by doing just losing my mind, not staying focused. And he would always get mad at me because he knew how good I could be, and he'd always say, "You're beating yourself. You know, you're not. It's not them beating you. You're beating yourself." So I credit him for that too, for making me, mature and calm more than anything. And yeah, it was always a thing that, just to make me better.
Yeah.
And I was very, very lucky because a lot of people don't get the support from their family and parents like I've had. Yeah. They've followed me around all over. Like when I played, we live in BC now. I grew up in Saskatchewan, but we live in BC now in the Okanagan, and it's like a 7-hour drive to Seattle. And my parents, I think, like when we played home games in Seattle, they were there pretty much every time. Like they were driving. I was actually talking about this with my dad the other day because there's a very bad highway through the mountains, through a mountain pass that you have to drive to get to Seattle from our home in Armstrong, BC. And like my dad was saying, like this winter, I guess, has been really, really ugly on the Coquihalla, it's called. And there's been a ton of car accidents, a ton of storms and stuff. And so he was saying, like, man, for those years that I was driving back and forth to Seattle all the time, we got really lucky with like coming. Because like honestly, they were there constantly. And that's pretty special and pretty lucky for me as a kid to have that, because like I said, not everybody gets that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Vince, Tracy, we're lucky to have you. Lucky to have Zack. Lucky to have you on the Cyclones, and obviously lucky to have Cincy in such a good position as they are right now. DROOS, thanks for taking the time, man. This was fun.
Yeah, of course. Anytime. Thank you for having me.
2 for Chirping with Zack Andrusiak, folks. We'll be back again in a couple of weeks.